Shut up and sit down.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening from wherever you're listening across the world. Welcome to another episode of Just Ball Things. Jackie boy looking fresh and fire as ever, using that camera as a mirror. We have the J-Man, Jack Manuel. How are you, mate?
Kind of sleepy, but kind of good, Nick. I like doing pods in the morning.
It's early in the morning. It is so freaking early. I mean, it's 11:15, Jack. It's crazy. I should not be awake right now. I think me and you were both up quite late doing our own thing. I went to bed at 1:30, which I've still had over 8 hours sleep. So I shouldn't be complaining, but I will because it's my podcast and I can do whatever the fuck I want. And I will complain that it is 11:15. And your other podcast duties have dictated that we need to do this early. Because we are small fry here at JBT. The Brooklyn Buzz, subscribe. Subscribe to the Brooklyn Buzz. Especially after this Brooklyn game. Hopefully it all goes well, Jackie boy. My name is Nick Busing. And mate, no random fact for you today. I've changed my setup. As the beautiful people can attest to. I've got my city shirt there. All autographed from 20... I actually don't know. I think it was...
You got Sergio on it? You got Aguero? You got your boy?
It's got Serge on there.
That's all that matters.
For the life of me, I couldn't tell you which one it is. I think it's up there. Because that one starts with AG. I mean, that would make the most
Have you
sense.
got Would Vincent Company be on that one?
Yes, he would. This was the year before we won the title with... Pellegrini, I believe, the year before, because the shirt doesn't have the Premier's badge on it. So I'm fairly sure it was the year before. So we've got...
I'll have to buy a new one this year.
Balotelli will be on there, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Silva will be on there. Just city greats, mate, and it's I'm loving life. But yes, changed the setup. I've got a lot more white behind me, so I'm going to do some stuff with the background. Chelsea has moved out of the room. She is no longer... Her desk is no longer in this room. I have this entire room to myself. It'll be great. Grand plans ahead. I'm also streaming on Twitch. Spellguerra. I stream World of Warcraft. No, shameless plug. Any World of Warcraft fans amongst the basketball fans? If I were to draw a Venn diagram of that, they would barely overlap. I may be the only one in that. Anyway, you can contact us on Twitter at JBTNick, at the JmanJBT. Handles are right there if you're watching us on the YouTubes. We're also closely affiliated with OTG Basketball. They've got an awesome podcast network and YouTube network, which you're seeing us on right now, where you can keep up to date with all things NBA. Make sure you give them a follow on Twitter at OTG Basketball and on YouTube. Subscribe and like all their videos at OTG Basketball. We are on Facebook, facebook.com/justballthings. Give us a like and a follow there, if that is your social of choice. And jbtpodcast@gmail.com. Where you can email the show, hit us up with anything you want to see us do, questions, comments, concerns, anything. We also are looking at the YouTube comments as well, so feel free to leave your comments there. We've already had I think one, maybe two, so we do appreciate your input, to say the least. We love it. All right, Jackie boy, first one here, Busing Manuel scale. For those of you... Damn right. Rep the t-shirt, Jackie boy. For those of you new, this is a JBT created scale that sums up how likely things are to happen in the NBA. We scale it on alternative fact, Twitter fact, Wikipedia fact, or straight up fact. Well done, Jackie boy. You can get that t-shirt, by the way, at designtree.com/OTG off the glass. So yeah, if you want to buy some merch, it is there. Mate, Kyrie Irving is the problem in Brooklyn. How many of these topics are we going to get? Oh, this is a Brooklyn Bits, isn't it? This is a Brooklyn Bits. Let's play it. So, Jackie boy, I alluded to it 10 seconds ago. I literally blurted it out. Didn't allude to it. Kyrie Irving is the problem in Brooklyn. I feel like we get one of these topics every week. What is going on?
Now, well, Nick, it's a Nets world now, unfortunately. The scary hours are upon us. Sometimes the scary hours are the defense. Sometimes the scary hours are Kevin Durant playing some insane offense. But in saying that, Kyrie Irving is the problem. This is to just bring about the trending of trade Kyrie on Twitter. Stephen A. Smith, Kendrick Perkins, Charles Barkley doing their BS first take stuff. Nick, this is a negatory. This is an alternative fact. I'm still in your word, negatory. I don't mind it.
Yeah.
But in saying that, I alluded to on last night's Brooklyn Buzz with Nick Fade, and Nick was probably even stronger on it than I was. He needs to also set the defensive tone because he was incredible offensively last night. But since he's come back from his absence, from his personal leave absence, he hasn't been as engaged as he was in the previous games on the defensive side of the floor. Normally, like Kyrie Irving isn't going to be a good defender,
Well, that's
but
right,
normally
yeah.
he's at least an active defender. He has active hands. He at least fights through screens. He runs hard in transition. There were a couple of possessions last night where his hands, he got the ball stripped from him by Isaac Okoro or Chetty Osman, and he just stood there for 3 seconds rather than being like, all right, this still happened. I want to get back and at least make a hard foul or at the very least, challenge them at the rim. So Kyrie Irving does have his issues, but to say he's the main brunt of it all is just deluded. And he played better than James Harden last night in the absence of Kevin Durant. And in the first game of the Scary Hours iteration, he was really, really good too. But in saying that, the problems of defense are obviously the big issue about the Brooklyn Nets in general. And one thing that I'm seeing on Twitter right now, Steve Nash is sort of saying, we need to be better at certain things, and we'll probably dive deeper into it on the Brooklyn Buzz. But in saying that, they don't want to change their sort of scheme or style. He believes in the switching style of defense. And while I do too, I don't think that there is a defensive mindset to this team. There isn't a hustle. There isn't an ability or a want or a desire to go, I'm going to make this hard for my opposition. I'm going to get in their grill. We've got one player who does that, Bruce Brown. And we had another player who did that in Jared Allen, but obviously we've lost him. And now we have DeAndre Jordan just sagging back, and just giving them a free lane to the rim. DeAndre Jordan is as close to washed as it can be. And Norvel Pell isn't going to save us, unfortunately. And Reggie Perry is a second-round pick as a rookie. So I think that's where the greater problem does lie, is that your most important defender, your backline defender, your rim protector, needs to be at least capable or average, and the Nets don't have that at all. Our best center is Kevin Durant or Jeff Green on the roster right now. And look, Nicholas Claxton hopefully is coming back soon, and Clack season hopefully can save us all, but I'm not going to rely on a second-year player either. The Nets need to get a JaVale McGee or a Dwayne Dedman or one of these guys to sort of help with the rim protection, help with the backline defense. Also, as well, there just doesn't seem to be a desire to want to do those little things, to hustle, to get back, to make a steal, to dive for loose balls. The Nets are playing pretty basketball right now. They're playing superstar basketball right now. And look, Kyrie Irving said it best himself, Nick. There's a second link there. He went to Twitter, to Instagram today, to the stories, sort of saying, if you're not rocking with us now, don't rock with us when it really does matter. I believe in this team because they have the leaders, Kevin Durant, James Harden, Kyrie Irving, look, we got to figure this stuff out. And DeAndre Jordan stole my saying that I said on the Buzz, Rome wasn't built in a day. Championships aren't won in January.
That's right.
But I do think that the habits need to start now. Kevin Durant alluded to it, just before Kenny Atkinson's firing last year, I think it was in March or sometime, that, we need to start building championship habits. They aren't being built right now. Kevin Durant is leading the way on both ends of the floor for us, and his absence is pronounced. He is the leader of this team as much as Kyrie Irving probably wants to be. But Kevin Durant is playing like an MVP contender, and I did allude to this on the Brooklyn Buzz in the preseason. If he is playing like the best player in the league, the Brooklyn Nets are going to have a chance to win the championship. And he is, so I need to stick to that. And I do believe in that. We do need to figure out the little things, and especially the defense, especially those hustle stats, points in the paint, rebounding. I think those can be remedied, because a lot of that is a mindset sort of and an attitude sort of thing, but it needs to start happening soon, Nick.
Defensive woes are the biggest
no one
concern.
Talks about Brooklyn Nets defense on podcasts, Nick. We're the only podcast that does it.
It's jarring. I mean, I'll give you a bit of statsies. I was busy during your rant. I can't tune in for all of it. There's a lot of information there. And I just found out that NBA stats now do advanced stats per game. So you can look at traditional stats and advanced stats per game. And advanced stats per game, it's dicey at best because you're looking at defensive and offensive rating across one game. And that's just, But it sort of alludes to a poor defense from quite a number of,
indicators.
Quite a number of players. Poor Chris Chiozza in 2 minutes got a defensive rating of 140, which is just funny because you normally see these advanced stats across a season. So to see a 140 is just alarming anyway. But it sort of corroborates that, Irving's defense out there is not the greatest, or rather the team's defense while he's out there is not the greatest. How much of that falls on Irving? How much of that falls on Nash? I think most of it should fall on Steve Nash.
No, it shouldn't. It should fall on the player.
No, I disagree because he needs to find his teams that will either click offensively, defensively, when to use them. Like, when does he need offense? When does he need defense? And you'll start to see, obviously this is one game, yeah? But you'll start to see over a season regression to the mean, and you'll see a not deplorable offense and hopefully quite a good not deplorable defense and hopefully quite a good offense, which is what is showing right now. Your season-long stats of defense, not great, not bad. Your last 5 games, though, you have the 3rd worst defensive rating in the league, which I think Harden's been there. Maybe it is 5 games now. So that's.
I think it's 4. I think it's 3 or 4.
But that is, you've got 2. One obviously was a massive scoreline in the double OT game against the Cavs, and then that last game, the Cavs still put up, I think, 115-ish thereabouts. You're still hemorrhaging points. You've got a defensive rating of 119 right now, only better than the Kings and the Pelicans over the last 5 games. Which, you can make of that as you will. The defense is definitely a problem. And I personally attribute defense more of a coaching stance because you're either not playing the right lineups or you're not doing enough in practice in preseason. Obviously, preseason was sort of non-existent, and you've had so many different things happen, and the trades that have happened, they need to find their voice defensively. They lost Jared Allen, which was massive. He was the cornerstone of their defense, and that's why lately their defense has been poo. But I have faith that these superstar players, and I have faith in the coaching staff that they will figure it out. They've got a whole season to figure out what lineups will work against what teams, where their strengths and weaknesses defensively lie. I am not an NBA coach. I can't tell them that. I don't know. But I have faith that that's what will figure them out. But that's a coaching thing. They need to figure out defensively what works.
I agree somewhat, and I've said this on the Buzz countless times, that the job of the coach is to give you the tools to succeed as players, whether that's the systems, whether that's the lineups. Yep. And I agree with that, Nick. But I also do think that the fair brunt of the responsibility lies on the players. They need to have a want and a desire to be good defensively. And Kyrie Irving, since he has been back, hasn't wanted to do that. And that's fine because I'm not sure where he's at in terms of everything going on with him, but he seems to be in a decent spot. He just needs to show a little bit more effort. There was a game that I alluded to on the Buzz, and I'll bring up here, against the Utah Jazz. In the absence of Kevin Durant, we didn't have James Harden at that point, and he was running both ways on the floor, getting steals, getting out in transition, and leading the break, leading the fast break as well. That's the type of effort that we need from Kyrie on both ends of the floor. When he's there by himself, he leads the team. But it seems to me when James Harden and or Kevin Durant are there, sometimes he sees responsibility. And it's just like, you know what? KD's an awesome defender. James Harden's a really good post defender. He shows a bit of strength. And he has been actually decent defensively since, going over to Brooklyn. I will say that. Kyrie Irving and DeAndre Jordan are the weak links right now. And it sucks because you got a weakness on the perimeter and you got a weakness in the back line. And the 2 key players, Kyrie Irving especially, you want to be playing in key stretches. DeAndre Jordan hasn't played clutch minutes for the Brooklyn Nets maybe since like the first 3 games this season. But in saying that, if you're having him out there at the start of the game against the likes of Andre Drummond and Jared Allen, he gets found out. Andre Drummond was decent last time. He wasn't as great the other game, but especially against Jared Allen as well. And then you got a backup in Reggie Perry. Norvell Pell hopefully comes back and does something, former Philadelphia 76er. But yeah, I think it's a discussion that we're going to continue having, Nick, and every other podcast is going to do it. Every other talking head is going to do it. But they aren't going to do it after every game like the Brooklyn Buzz does. So subscribe to that on iTunes.
That's right, Jackie boy. You go real deep dive on the Brooklyn stuff. So yeah, it is a great podcast for those Brooklyn fans or even just those interested in the Nets. They're an interesting team this year. Jackie boy, we'll move on to the next one. Kemba Walker. His health will be the key determiner of Boston's success.
Nick, this is a Wikipedia fact for me. I think Kemba Walker, since his return, has been good, has been, really solid. That first game, he was sort of just getting the kinks out. He alluded to reporters that, it just felt good to be out there and pain-free because, in the bubble, every single shot that he was taking, he said that he experienced a semblance of pain, and I can't imagine that. That would be absolutely awful. But in saying that, the Boston Celtics, as they currently are one of the best teams in the NBA and one of the best teams in the East. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown's taken that leap. He's going to be an all-star this season. There's an argument where I've had with either you or people in the outlet. There's too many podcasts on the OTG network that I forget where my takes go. But in saying that, he's been you can make an argument he's been better than Jason Tatum. I'm not going to set that in stone. I think I actually did say that on the outlet. But he has been incredible. And Jason Tatum is incredible. Obviously, the depth and the pieces around that is where they do lie. And that's why I think Kemba Walker's health is so important because you don't want Marcus Smart to be your point guard. You want him to be filling in with pieces here and there, shoot a couple of three balls, play some insane, incredible defense like he always does. And you don't want Peyton Pritchard to have a large bunch of the responsibilities in a rookie as well. As great here as he has been, and we hope he gets back soon with the MCL injury that was announced. So injuries do suck. So they are quite shallow of a team, and the Brooklyn Nets are as well. And depth doesn't necessarily matter in the postseason, but you need to have about 8 or 9 quality guys, and a minimum of 7. And I think that the teams that have that, even the Bucks are struggling with that, and the Sixers. A lot of the teams in the East are struggling for that depth, like the Utah Jazz, the Lakers, maybe to a lesser extent the Clippers. All those guys are much more in a much better place when it comes to depth. But the East, depth could be a swinging factor for who actually comes out of the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, you're right. And it sort of speaks volumes when I guess when the Brooklyn Nets essentially traded a lot of their depth for superstars, and you're seeing that all over the league, and you're essentially getting rid of, which may not necessarily be a bad play in a shortened season. The regular season is less impactful, I guess technically, and maybe that requires you to be focusing more on the playoffs. You just have to make it there. It was the whole adage with the Cleveland team. It's like, doesn't matter whether they finish 8th or 1st, they will be in the NBA Finals. That was very true for a very long time. So in regards to, I guess, the Kemba Walker take, it's hard because the Boston Celtics should still be incredibly good without Kemba Walker, given that they've got, you've got your likes of your Jason Tatum, your Jaylen Brown, and those guys are set to be tremendous players and already are in a lot of respects. The last 3 games with Kemba Walker have all resulted in losses. And are they playing today, Jackie boy? I think they're...
The Boston Celtics?
Yeah.
No, they played yesterday against the Sixers.
Yes, that's right. So we've got 3 losses in his return. That was a double against the Sixers. It's so weird to see these playing twice in a row. Like you were playing the Cavs. Anyway, playing the Cavs twice. 19 points, and 9 points have been his last 3 games, and all 3 losses would suggest that yes, his health is imperative for the Celtics to win these games. But I think the Celtics were still winning games without him. I think it's the addition that is sort of, you want him to do more. Therefore, you give him the shots, you give him the sort of means to do more, and then currently he's not fulfilling those means, and so they result in losses. Is it a case that they need to be relying more on Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and less on Kemba Walker? probably. They are your future anyway. So I too am going to give this a wiki. I think you gave this one a wiki. Because the Celtics are certainly talented enough to get this done without Walker's help. And Walker is just this sort of...
I don't think they are.
I feel like it's the ace in their sleeves.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they are. I think that because of the Brooklyn Nets with their three superstars, the Boston Celtics have a semblance of a big three of their own.
Hold on. Let's. When I say get this done, no one's passing the Brooklyn Nets. They're not going to make the NBA Finals with or without Kemba Walker.
I think they can. I think they're with the chance. I think all the teams that I alluded to, the Sixers, the Bucks, the Nets, there's probably 4 or 5 teams. The Miami Heat, if they get some healthy players, it really sucks that we're seeing, COVID and a lot of injuries ravage them. I think that the East is a bit of a slog right now. And look, I think that whichever team, and it's a cop-out, but it happens in all of sport, AFL, Premier League, when you have your superstars and your best players healthy at the right time. We saw Spencer Dinwiddie today, and by the time this is out, it'll be yesterday. But we saw Spencer Dinwiddie today shooting threes before tonight's game against the Miami Heat. So just Spencer Dinwiddie sneakily come back by an April or May or June and sneak into the playoffs. Who knows? But in saying that, the team that has their best players available, Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, Kemba Walker, Jason Tatum, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Drew Holiday, everyone else, they're going to be the teams that are going to be around the wings. And if any one of those contending teams in the East or West has a serious injury to one of their superstars, you can almost count them out because, like you said, shortened season. It
shakes everything up. I mean, my faith in the Brooklyn Nets right now hinges on one single player because I do believe that this guy, similar to a LeBron James, can carry you all the way to the NBA Finals, and that is Kevin Durant. He is incredible. And if he gets injured, then I probably don't even have you making the East Finals.
I don't either.
Without him.
No.
Whereas with him, you're all the way to the NBA Finals. And so you're right in that you obviously want Kemba Walker on your team regardless. He's going to be better than your backup point guards, your Jeff Teague. That's right. If you really want to bite and say play Marcus Smart at the point, but whatever. Like there are bodies there, but they're not going to be as good as Kemba Walker. He obviously improves your team, but I am a little bit more pessimistic in that Kemba Walker doesn't move the needle enough past Kevin Durant. It doesn't move it past the Kevin Durant Nets, and so what's the point? It's sort of a bad. It's bad, and I still think that they can get it done in that they are still potentially an East Finals team without Kemba Walker. The Miami Heat did it with a ragtag bunch of misfits and Jimmy Butler. Before those playoffs, Tyler Hero was good, but he wasn't like a god. And then playoffs happen. No, he hasn't. That's right. Goran Dragic had some freaking resurgent season. He's Benjamin Button out there getting younger. But I look at the Heat, and if you have the right mentality, and you obviously need the talent to get behind it, and they certainly do, Tatum is going to take off this year, and I think will be, especially in the early points of the playoffs, will be on his way to Finals MVP. That's how good I think Jason Tatum will be in the Finals, but I don't think they'll make it all the way. So he won't win Finals MVP.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see, Nick. But we'll move on to a team that we were chatting about a little bit there in the Philadelphia 76ers. And Nick, Joel Embiid is the MVP at this early point of the season.
It's hard to deny him right now, and it's weird because I certainly did a lot of Joel Embiid denying before the season started. I'm obviously not his biggest fan. And maybe that's a bit of a defensive argument for me because I am a big fan of Ben Simmons, and he's stopping Ben Simmons from growing. No. And the whole trade things of last year. Who do you trade? You trade Joel Embiid. You trade Ben Simmons. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind now that you would be trading Ben Simmons. And I think the Philadelphia organization, I mean, they were literally, I think they had his bags packed. Like, they were so close to dealing that trade for James Harden, but obviously it didn't happen. And, you know, he put up 38 points against the Celtics in that win. And he's just been the dominant big man that we all thought he would be. Like, mentally, he seems engaged. He's making very smart plays. He's not, you know, he's still going to be as active on his social media. I think he was saying something. I can't remember. He had some beef with someone recently. Maybe you could fill in, but
probably Shaq. Who does Shaq not have beef with?
That's a fair point. That's a fair point, Jackie boy. You know, he's always going to be him, but he just seems engaged right now, and that's good. That is, maybe it was Brett Brown. You know, he's looking a lot more engaged under Rivers there. So yeah, I mean, early season MVP. I'd probably put this as a fact. Maybe Bradley Beal. You know, like he's the points champion.
We've played like
right
what
now.
6 games? When was the last time the Wizards played a game? We'll get to them a little bit later in Wizards Woes, but in saying that, Nick, you know, it's hard not to. You know, they have the best win-loss record in the Eastern Conference. You know, out of the 4th best record in the league. The other names that I would throw in there, a guy that I said on, I believe, last season's JBT that could be an MVP contender, and you laughed at me, Nick. You laughed at me. Paul George. I think Paul George is an MVP contender as of this point. Remember, Nick? Remember? You laughed at me, son. You laughed at me.
And I will laugh some more. Ha ha ha.
That sounded like a Kawhi Leonard laugh. But you'd also probably throw in a LeBron James, what he's doing.
LeBron will always be there, and this is the thing. I think LeBron just gets overlooked because of how great he is, and you know, like you need to have a rise. This is the thing that I always say. I say to you, you need to have a rise to your MVP. The MVP is more or less a most improved player to the point where you are the best player in the league. Like. It is, Jack. You can't. That's why back-to-backs are so hard. And to get the back-to-back, I bring in the case of Stephen Curry. You need to have improved to a point where you are the greatest player in that season, and then he improved again, like to get that back-to-back unanimously. And I think I think the same rings true with every MVP. And you just need to have improved to a point where you are the best player in the league, and that makes your case a lot better. I'm not saying that you can't be done like a LeBron James, so you put up consistent numbers, whatever. But if someone else bursts onto the scene and says, "Hey, I'm putting up this many points, and I don't usually put up this many points," the storyline leans towards them a lot heavier. So I think this plays into Joel Embiid's hands a lot better than LeBron James's because of all the haters, because of people like me, Jack, that said he doesn't have the mental fortitude to be able to do this, and we will see in the playoffs. We will see. And that was Giannis's biggest knock. You know, he's super good in the regular season. Can he do it in the playoffs? And Joel Embiid
and we also need to see it for like longer than 15,
that's right.
games.
I mean, 27 points per game this year, up from his career high. Not much higher, but he is still doing what he's doing, and they're resulting in quality wins. And I think that's important. And that could be down to the coaching changes. I certainly think that has a very good it has a very big impact. They're not only winning games, they're smacking teams. I'm looking at these game logs right now. There are some 20-point wins, 24 points, 15, 17.
They've had a decent sort of schedule and stuff. And names I wanted to throw in there, Nick, before we do move on, from teams that haven't had probably as good winning records. Nikola Jokic, what he's doing with the Denver Nuggets is insane.
It's the record, though. And I think I alluded to this last week. The week before. I did say that if these were wins, he would 100% be MVP because the highlights are there for even like the casual fan saying, "Oh, this guy's great." Really flashy stuff. They're getting wins, and he just, man, his shots are just gorgeous.
And I think he might still be leading the league in assists as well. Like he's truly an incredible player.
Yeah.
Yeah, and another name, Kevin Durant. We alluded to him. Obviously, whether he's going to play enough games, whether the Brooklyn Nets are going to win enough games,
Yeah.
is going to be the thing for him. But there is certainly the narrative behind him. And look, a guy that I picked just because I wanted to throw his name in there. Who knows what Golden State can do? And Stephen Curry, when he is Stephen Curry, he is a media darling in a lot of respects. There aren't many people that dislike Stephen Curry. The people that dislike Stephen Curry are just the people that like LeBron James a lot.
Yeah.
But so yeah, it's a pretty stacked MVP race at this early point of the season. But I think the biggest question for the person we're talking about, Joel Embiid, is this going to be a flash in the pan like an Andrew Wiggins, or are you going to maintain consistency like a true superstar, like a LeBron James, Giannis Antetokounmpo, a Stephen Curry, and elevate yourself from being like a top 10-ish player to being a bona fide top 5 player? Because your question about him in the postseason, Nick, I think is fair-ish. I think it's more of a conditioning thing because I still think he can impact the game maybe more than Giannis can in the postseason because he has a wider array of an offensive skill set. He has that 3-ball that is at least respectable. He can hit the mid-range shot. He's good he's incredible in the post. Probably the best post player in the league with Nikola Jokic. Well, Nikola Jokic has a bit more variety with his passing, obviously, but so I'm pretty confident of that. It's just that, can he maintain it? Is his conditioning there? Is his desire there? And look, you've alluded to this in the past quite fervently on the pod. So it's the biggest question, and it's going to be a question. And it's not something that can be answered after 15, 16 games. It's something that can be answered after 72, 85 games and after 7-game series. Because look, the Toronto series as well, he was incredible a couple of years ago. So I don't have the questions there. I have the question of like true superstars do it night after night after night after night. And he's done it for 15 to 20 games. Can he do it for a large stretch of the season? I hope so, because then I want to just see new faces, new blood. And Embiid is a great face, a great sort of superstar, and a rising superstar at that.
Yeah, that's right. One alarming thing about Joel Embiid, his 3-point percentage he's shooting 40% from 3 on 3 attempts a game, which is great. That is great. His effective field goal right now is 60%, which is insane. But as you said, he's played 13 games, so we'll see how long this can continue for, and what it will be that makes him spiral, if anything, because there will be one thing, a bad game, a bad loss, that seems to happen every year, that seems to make him spiral. Whether he has matured enough to be able to get past that, for that to not happen. And you don't want to see him put up a donut game like he did last year, which was the sort of, I guess, sign of the times in Philadelphia. And that was really damning. And he obviously, and rightfully so, copped a lot of flack for that. And that was the sort of spiraling point. So we'll see if something like that does happen, how well he can rebound. And he's very good at rebounding, Jackie boy. So we'll... I'm waiting for that event to happen, and then we'll see the aftermath.
Yeah, the adversity, I guess, Nick, is a really good point. How he handles that, it's a really pertinent point. Yeah. Now, Nick, let's move on to the Western Conference, and I put to you the Utah Jazz are being slept on. Now, the OTG basketball account, Nick's probably got some highlights playing or something, but OTG basketball on Twitter asked for the 3rd best team in the West right now. I think it's a resounding Utah Jazz. If you don't think so, then you either believe in the potential of the Dallas Mavericks or the Phoenix Suns or whoever else, or the Denver Nuggets to get things together. But you have to believe in form. Right now, the Utah Jazz are the 3rd best team in the league, not just the 3rd in terms of win-loss record. And as much as Shaq wants to discredit Donovan Mitchell in a pretty stupid way, and TNT
it's crazy,
and the national media continuing to do really dumb things in regards to that, downgrading the awesomeness of our young superstars and the rising players in the league, and not knowing players' names or what country they're from. That's a discussion we could have talked about, but it's rich coming from us, Abs. But so I didn't want to totally talk. I want to focus on. And look, I'm loving the Utah Jazz, Nick, and not just loving the fact that the Brooklyn Nets are one of the few teams that absolutely destroyed them. With their full roster, mind you, there wasn't an injury to Donovan Mitchell or resting for Rudy Gobert or Joe Ingles or Mike Conley. But everything is clicking for them right now. They have depth. Jordan Clarkson, the 6th man of the year right now. Donovan Mitchell hasn't been amazing, to be honest, but his passing oh my God, some of his highlights with his passing, he's improved in that regard. And I think it's one thing he is using is he's using his athleticism to drive into the paint and collapse the defense and make kick-out passes that LeBron James makes. Like there is some, like the one pass to Bojan Bogdanovic might be one of the passes of the season. Like that was truly incredible. Rudy Gobert, you're getting the steadiness from him. You know, there's not a drop-off from him, and I think he is one of the best defenders in the league. You know, I think the depth off the bench, you know, Royce O'Neal as a starter, as a makeshift sort of defensive starter, is something I would love the Brooklyn Nets to have. And Mike Conley is getting a revitalized season. What the Brooklyn, not the Brooklyn Nets, what the Utah Jazz needed out of him last season. You know, they needed him to be this version of it so they could take that next step. And I think he's taken some momentum from the bubble. I thought he was quite good there, and he's brought it into this season. And, you know, he might be their best player at this point, Nick. And I don't know the stats. You know, you're more of a stats guy than me, you and Corey Waldron. But when I watched them play, he is just incredible. You know, he's 3-level scoring. He's much better in the pick and roll with Rudy Gobert now. I think that's where he had a lot of issues. And there just seems to be a balance and a composure to his game. And he's impacting the game on so many levels. And I love their depth. You know, you got Ingles, you got Derek Favors is back. I think that and I believe they were the team that I picked to be third or second. I think you might have picked the same as well. So I think that they are slightly being slept on, at least by some people. I'm a big believer in the Utah Jazz.
I certainly slept on them preseason. I didn't have them. I did not have them high. I had them high the season before because this is the team that we all thought this was going to be. You know, and the Utah Jazz were disappointing last season. And I just figured that disappointment would continue into this season. But they are the team that they were supposed to be last season. You said, you know, they're getting more from Conley this year, this season. This is the stuff that they needed from Conley last season. And if you look at, I guess the stats, they don't differ. They don't differ greatly from last season in terms of he's only averaging 2 more points per game. But I think the start of Conley, as soon as like Conley got traded, and his start at Utah was shaky to say the least. And so that sort of cemented him as, you know, he doesn't look the same. He's not playing obviously the way that we've seen him with the Grizzlies. And then obviously started to turn it around in the latter half of that season, and we've seen that sort of roll on into this season, and it's great. You're right; he's been playing really well. Rudy Gobert is going to be Rudy Gobert. He's doing the same thing that he does every single time. He's actually averaging a lot more rebounds this year, 13.5, which is insane. Mitchell has been, I mean, credit where credit's due with Mitchell. He's been playing great, and you know the Jazz right now they're on a 7-game win streak or something like that. Over those 7 games, their net rating is the best in the league with 15.1 net rating. Jack, they're obviously going to be insane defensively, and they are, but their offensive is clicking. They've got 118 over this 7-game win span. So again, they sort of started a little bit. I think they started a little bit shaky, but then seven wins on the trot has catapulted them into third. And, you know, the Clippers are suffering the same sort of thing right now. They're on an 8-game win streak, and they're on top of the West right now. Similar to a single game of basketball, it just comes in runs, you know. But certainly right now, they are the third best team in the league.
By the end of the season, Nick, I'll ask you before we move on to Wizards woes. Do you think they'll be the third best team? You know, you can obviously change your mind, but I want to hear a take from you. Do you think they'll be the third best team, or do you think Phoenix?
I think that this is a flash in the pan. I do think this is a flash in the pan. I think we'll see a little bit of regression to the mean. Like 11-4 is insane for the Jazz. You know, at a a 73% win percentage, and that is third right now, which is just crazy. The Lakers and Clippers are absolutely banging. But I think maybe a high 50s by the end of the season would suit the Jazz, and I do hope they.
It's an 82-game season, so whatever that is in a 72-game season.
Yeah, that's right. And so wherever that puts them in the East, and I do hope I'm wrong. I do want my prediction from 2 seasons ago to come true, and the Utah Jazz to finish third or second or wherever I'd put them, because I think they've had the talent for so long, and it feels like it's just clicking now, and that's great. But I also want the Suns to be good, so I'm torn.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I'm high on the Utah Jazz. I was high on them in the power rankings for OTG basketball. I was high on them in our season preview, and I still am. And I think that one thing that has changed about them is their offensive identity. You mentioned like the net rating and stuff there. They're jacking threes, and they're hitting them like crazy. So I think that that's always been a question mark about Utah Jazz. What is their offensive identity? Is it around Donovan Mitchell as a guy who is an inconsistent? He proves that he has inconsistencies throughout the season. But if you are shooting a lot of threes and you are making them, you are generally going to be one of the better teams in the league. So I think that part of their offensive identity, if it remains, then I think that they're going to be the third best team in the the West. So
44% from three over the past 7 games, which is second best in the league.
Incredible. And I think that they might be leading the league in 3-point attempts as well. Like they're one of the few teams to be shooting like 40 plus 3-pointers. And, that's generally an indicator of Houston Rockets, Mike D'Antoni.
That's right.
Start level of offense. But from the highest of highs, let's go to the lowest of woes.
Ooh, nice.
The Washington Wizards is making noise.
I drank some bleach all the way down to the blue, and now I'm starting to feel like Harry Potter.
Jackie boy, that segue was possibly the best you've ever done. Ever. That was great. Very good. And it comes as a very depressed Wizards fan. The Wizards shouldn't have to play 72 games. We have now had 6 games postponed. I feel like it's more.
Yeah, played in 12 or 13 days, Nick, and I believe you are playing your next game. I'm not sure who it's against. You can look that up while I have a little bit of a ramble. But the reason why I say this is I saw on Twitter, and I think I heard on No Dunks, that if the Washington Wizards, as they're currently constructed, have to make up all the games for the 72-game season, in the latter half of the schedule, we'll have to play 40 games in 67 nights. That's 2 games in 3 nights, and that is not sustainable for health or quality basketball or for a quality product in general. And I think that that's going to lead to injuries aplenty. And, Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal, the Wizards, had 8 healthy players a couple of nights ago. And they were like, look, we can't play. We haven't practiced in ages. We're going to have a heap of soft tissue injuries. And this is something I think we talked about in the early points and the latter points of last season when we were talking about the bubble and stuff. And it's happened in so many sports. There's been a lot of knee injuries, non-contact injuries like ACLs, PCLs, MCLs. You look at Thomas Bryant from your team. You look at Spencer Dinwiddie from my team. Peyton Pritchard had an MCL injury as well. So, look, I don't think that they should, Nick, but I think that at the end of the day, for TV providers and for all of these external circumstances, they're gonna have to, and it sucks, And they've added Jordan Bell on a 10-day contract. I believe they've added Alex Len as well, who was let go by the Toronto Raptors. Some decent enough players to fill in the roster to back up Robin Lopez. I actually like Jordan Bell, and I would have liked him on the Brooklyn Nets instead of Norvel Pell. But in saying that, I don't know, Nick, you're the Wizards fan here. What are your thoughts?
I don't care. I don't, Jack. I must admit I've missed Wizards basketball, which is weird. You don't really know until it's gone. And I guess this happens at the end of the season, and it's just it's no more Wizards basketball. But then you get the playoffs, which is much better. So I have missed it a bit. I won't lie, but we're such a small fry in this league. We're so inconsequential in what we do. The only possible impact of us not playing the games is that the teams I think we had our latest postponement was against the Bucks. They're going to want that win. I'm just assuming it's going to be a win because they're playing the Wizards. Or potential loss. Maybe they don't want to gamble. but yeah, like I said, we're just so small fry in this league that I don't think it really matters. Well, I don't think many people will give a crap if we don't play the rest of the league. And for the sake of Bradley Beal's knees and trade value, let's not play 2 games every 3 nights for the next 2 months. Let's not do that. Maybe play. Even if you're going to play some of them, which ones do you choose to play? I think it's either like an all or nothing, which I would have nothing. We had the Jazz, we've had the Cavs twice, I believe, the Pistons, the
Sixers.
Bucks. A lot of those teams, maybe Cleveland will be spewing that they're not playing the things. They're rolling right now, 8-7. I think they're 8-7.
They are.
Yeah. And so they'll be, most teams will be spewing that they're not going to be playing the Wizards because it's scheduled losses. This is a scheduled win. I shouldn't talk. I'm a fan because I talk that much shit about the Wizards. That's how you know I'm a fan. I just think it's inconsequential. If someone like that, and especially with the play-in tournament as well, you've got that chance. Like if you've just missed out on the 8th seed because you had a game postponed against the Wizards that you could have won, and it obviously didn't count as anything. You've still got the play-in tournament to show that you deserve to have been in the playoffs. And the home court advantage, really, are we even going to get fans in the stands by the time playoff rolls around? I think that the impact to the league is so small that there's no point putting your players at risk, and they're going to cop so much heat because if they decide to do this, whether they think it's right or not, whether people are split on whether it's right or not, and then something happens, I think even if it is to a Garrison Matthews. I don't know why he is my go-to shit Wizards player, but even if it is to an Ish Smith, the hammer will come down because players like Beal, who aren't injured, or potentially Beal will get injured, Russell Westbrook, they will be fighting for look what you have done. You have single-handedly ruined this guy's year. You've ruined his I'm not going to say career because that's a bit hyperbole, but
for those role guys, Nick,
potentially
a key injury
right.
can ruin their career.
Well, you're right. You're 100% right. And what position do you put the Wizards in when, what quality of game are you going to get? Especially, if we don't have the depth, then we have to play these guys both heavy minutes and back-to-backs every second night.
It's what the Nets did the other day.
It's insane. If we had a 15 deep roster, then you're going to get games where we just throw rest, whatever. You can manage that. But when you're playing with 8 players, and then not only is that an increased burden, you then have to play them twice as many games.
Well, look at the Heat at the early point of the season, that game against the Philadelphia 76ers, where it was 8 versus 8 players, and now you look 2 weeks later, and they've got 4 of their key rotation players out.
That's
Is
right.
that a linking factor?
The worst
Maybe.
thing in the world about playing multiple games back to back is having played 44 minutes the day before. If you're getting away with playing 30 on one of those games, then you could probably squeak it. But then even you don't, management don't like it now. You're playing back to back, it's not good. And then you're making the Wizards play back to backs every second night, which is baffling. 2 games every 3 nights for 2 months is insane. And yeah, just don't do it. No one's going to care. The Wizards aren't going to care. The TV people will give a shit, but fuck them. That's my 2 cents, Jack. Fuck them.
No, I feel you, mate. There's it doesn't make a lot of sense, but look, we'll wait and see how it all pans out. Hopefully, the vaccine gets to the players and others sooner rather than later. But yeah, I think that the highlight of that episode was certainly my transition. I don't think I've been doing podcasting for so long that I've just learned you and Nick Fay and Corey Waldron how to like be a better like co-host. So cheers to you guys for impacting me and my hosting abilities.
Oh, well, we thank you, Jackie boy. We know that this podcast would not happen without you, so I'd just be talking to myself about about the Wizards for an hour and then pizza for 10 minutes. Well, maybe pizza for an hour and then Wizards for 10 minutes. Now that's a podcast I'd listen to. All right, Jackie boy. That just about does it for another week. So we'd just like to say thank you for everyone who's tuned in to Just Ball Things. As always, you can catch us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Player FM, Spreaker, Spotify, wherever it is you listen to your podcasts. We will be on there. Make sure you subscribe so you know when we come out with fresh content. Generally, it's the same every week. Saturday, I believe, in America land. Sunday night, in Australia. Do us solid if you're listening to us on Apple. Leave us a rating and review. Helps us out a bunch. If you're catching us on the YouTubes, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit the notification bell, leave us a comment. Do all of those things simultaneously if you'd like. Make sure you, subscribe to the OTG network so that you know when new things come out. That's how subscriptions work. So remember, it's you guys that make the show great, so we appreciate any and every post heading our way. So until next week.
Keep ballin', superstars.